Hello and welcome to the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things. Recorded live at the 18th Annual Florida Writers Conference. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. I'm your host, Allison Nissen, and today I am lucky enough to have with me EJ Wenstrom. EJ, why don't you give me a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
All right, well, hello. Thanks for having me. I'm EJ Wenstrom, and I write science fiction and fantasy novels. A lot derived from kind of mythology, a lot of monsters. Most of all, I really love to have anti-heroes front and center in my stories. I love a very, very flawed character. I write a little adult. I write a little young adult. Yeah, I think that's the gist.
Sounds like you're awfully busy.
Yeah. It keeps me hopping, but I like that.
Did you always want to be a writer?
No, not at all. I never in a million years would have told you that I'd ever become a writer. It's something that I love to talk about, actually, because you hear so many stories of people, they're writing with their crayons, they're 4 years old, and they're already doing their stories. And I'm like, oh, you've got like 30 years on me. But no, it took me forever. When I was even looking at colleges, I was looking at engineering programs. And then I decided I did not ever want to do that much math again. And so then I was looking at being a teacher, and I was thinking about being an editor because I always liked being around books. I always loved stories. But it took an internship with a local magazine in Michigan where I was in college to get me to ever even consider writing anything. And I had to be really forced into it. I was required to do an internship for my college graduation. So I had to check the box. And this was the one I got. I just kind of spread an application out anywhere that would take one. Ended up there. And I just got so lucky. The managing editor there that I reported to used to be a high school counselor before he was an editor. And so he was a really wonderful person to be under at that point in your career. He was really patient and was really good at helping connect the dots about how to introduce a story, how to put the paragraphs together. And something during that time just really clicked, and I just got addicted to it. And even after that point, it took a few more years for me to really get to a point where I ever considered fiction. It was another kind of serendipitous moment for me. I was working at a marketing agency at the time, and we were in an open office setting where there was 4 of us all in one room. And we just tossed out ideas all the time. And someone kicked out some news story that NASA had sent some space robot to some remote planet. And I just said some sort of offhand comment that I can't even remember what it was now. But the other person just said, that would be a great story. You should write it. And something clicked in my brain. I was like, maybe I will write it. And I didn't. I never wrote that story. It's still kind of in the back of my brain, but it got me thinking in the right direction. And I started looking into different types of monsters and folklore, came across golems, and wrote Mud, the first book in my series for the Chronicle of the Third Realm Wars.
And that's a fantasy series.
It's a fantasy series. I'm actually working on the final and 4th title of that right now. It should be out in early 2020.
So what's the definition of fantasy for you?
Ooh, so it's a very broad net for me. I'm a big fan of anything kind of cross-genre or mix and match. But fantasy, I think, is really just anything that breaks out of the everyday and then also out of anything that could be tied to a spread of real-world future. So sci-fi, I feel, is anything that could spring out of where we are currently, so technology-based. Fantasy breaks all of those rules. So anything that has magic or inexplicable monsters, some alien stories, some zombie stories, depending on those origins, all of that.
I like that. I've never actually spent a lot of time defining fantasy or science fiction because those aren't my genres. Sure. I'm really based in like earth-based, normal type stuff, and I tend to write nonfiction anyway, sort of more experience type of writing, things that have happened, things that I either know have happened or that have happened to me, and therefore I can write real world things. And then when I break out and try to do something that's creative beyond this world, I get really stuck.
See, I'm the other way around. Trying to write something that's real gets really hard for me because I'm so locked in by the rules that exist. I'd much rather just kind of like clean slate it, just clear the plate and start building it completely from scratch, because then I get to say what all the rules are, and then I know what the rules are. I always feel like mystery and thriller has got to be one of the hardest things to write, because you get into all of those very nitty-gritty details about, like, what kind of gun did he shoot? And did you specify the right kind of bullet? And what kind of ricochet is it going to have? I can't do that. I cannot. I'll do a magic wand. I'll tell you what the spells are. I'll tell you what the consequences are. Fine. But don't try to lock me down to real life.
That is, I think I'm going to try fantasy, because I think that sounds fun, actually.
It is fun. You get to be God.
So you have an active blog site.
I do. I do a lot of blogging. My own blog is in a little bit of a hiatus, but I do a lot of blogging for DIY MFA. I do a lot for Book Riot. A lot of it focuses around platforming for authors. I like to give those tips because in my other life outside of writing, I work at a public relations firm. And so this is what my life is all about.
Tell me about public relations.
Okay. So it's been a lot broader these days than it used to be, because everything is so integrated the way that the world's been evolving with technology. But in the most traditional sense, public relations is just getting client stories out to reporters in a way that is relevant and timely and interesting and shows the significance of what your client's story is all about, so that it ends up in the news. But these days, it has to do with a lot more than that. I do a lot of content strategy, and so we do a lot of online digital platforming as well, which is great because it translates so nicely to building an author platform. A lot of website and content and social media, and then also looking at the data analytics and making sure that what you're doing is getting the results you want.
It's becoming very difficult for writers who are not versed in computers to actually build their platform and to launch their own careers. And they really do need people to help.
Yes. It's a totally different kind of skill set. But I love talking to authors about data and platform, because I think that it really is another way of looking at it's very rooted in story. I like to say that the same way that when you're writing a story, you want to tell your reader about your character by, cues, show, don't tell. So you don't just say, Joe's having a bad day. You say, Joe got the wrong order for his coffee at the cafe, and then he got to work late, and he screwed up in his meeting, and his boss yelled at him, and then he got stuck in traffic on the way home. You show it. Much like that, when you're looking at your data analytics, the cues of where your readers go can tell you a lot about what they want from you and what's going to work best to continue to building a relationship with them, which is really what it's all about when it comes to book sales down the line.
When you work with clients, are you able to take their particular story and then fantasize it? I guess that's not how you really say it. Turn it into speculative fiction. Like, you have a crazy story there, and I know exactly where this is going to work in another realm.
I would like to have some platforming in another realm. Let's do that. No, I think for some authors, it can feel like you're in a different realm, honestly. It can be very foreign, but it comes down to, those human connections, no matter where you are. And it's about the engagement a lot more than it is the pressure to produce. One thing that I hear a lot from authors is, well, I don't really have anything to say, or I don't have, 10 different mind-blowing insights to put on Twitter, throughout every single day. What am I even supposed to do? And so because they feel like this great pressure to do that every single time they post, they never do it at all. They don't feel they have the meat that they need for that. And that's just really not what it has to be about. You can share other people's content that you think your readers are going to find interesting. You can just take part of the conversation around it. That's what hashtags are all about. So you can search for the hashtag and then find what other people are already saying and respond to it. You can retweet it. You can just get into it that way too. And that's all very impactful. A lot of times it's a lot more impactful than just trying to shout out one way all the time.
What's your favorite? Is Twitter your favorite platform?
It is. That's my personal favorite. And that's also where the publishing industry tends to be the most. So that's usually my go-to example. But depending on what you're writing, LinkedIn can be a great place to be still. Instagram can be a great place to be. Facebook can still be a great place to be, although it's not really where the kids are anymore. So if you're doing young adult, that's not the place to be, but it can be a wonderful place to build relationships.
My limited use of platforms other than Facebook, because I am, and when I started Facebook, it was to get to be able to know what my students and my children were doing, and then of course they're no longer on it, so that doesn't work. Now they go on Facebook now to check up on their parents. That's the best thing. They do. They go in there every now and then just to see what we're doing. I have to go onto Instagram to do that for them. Mm-hmm, so Instagram is another platform that I want to use more. But you're telling me authors are publishing is centered more around Twitter. And what is it about Twitter that they like?
Well, I think some of it was maybe the timing of it, when it came out. If this were coming about differently, if Instagram had been the one to emerge first, then maybe Instagram's where it would be. But I think just the timing of how social media emerged and also the timing of how publishing adapts to technology, which is a little slow. Twitter just seems to emerge as the sweet spot. And I think with the hashtags, there's a lot of really great chats that you can follow that are recurring over time. It's also a great place to be for live pitch events. So Pitch Wars is a great one, but there's many others as well. And those continue to live on to great success. I actually found my current editor through one of those Twitter events. And it's just a great place to learn from agents, learn from editors. A lot of them are putting out their own insights on the regular and sharing that with whoever is there to soak it up.
The regular is an actual account?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Just like on a regular basis.
Oh, okay.
That's a valid question.
There you go. Over my head, and maybe not over everybody else's,
but no, and they're just blasting it out all the time. Actually, Delilah Dawson does a thread called 10 Things for Publishing, where she shares her own insights, and it's almost like reading a blog post, but in a Twitter thread format. Yeah, it's just a great way. It's like a ongoing happy hour. It's a networking mixer that's happening around the clock.
What are your favorite hashtags?
I love Writer's Life. I love Writing Community. That tends to be a particularly active one. And I really am big on 5 a.m. Writers Club for those of us who write before we get on with our day in the mornings. 5 o'clock. Check in, get into the writing. And it's really nice to see all the other people who are, first one out of bed in their households. They're getting up. They care about this enough to just make this the first thing they do in their day and, just keep everyone else accountable and cheer each other on. It's wonderful.
EJ, how could people get in touch with you?
All right. So you can find me at EJ Wenstrom. That's W-E-N as in Nancy, S-T-R-O-M as in Mary, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can email me at ejwenstrom@gmail.com, and you can visit my website at ejwenstrom.com.
Fantastic. Are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions?
No, but let's do it.
This is the fun part. Come on. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movies. Okay, this could be a few different things depending on the mood, but I'll go with Kill Bill.
Kill Bill. All right. Uma Thurman.
Yes.
And all
Quentin
yellow.
Tarantino. Female assassins.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, there's so many good ones to choose from. I was just watching The Boys, and they had some good ones in there. But I would probably have to go with telepathy. I love having information, so I'd love to be able to know what's going on in other people's minds at any given time.
Could be very useful.
Yeah.
Very useful. And if you won $1,000 in the lottery, what would you spend it on?
$1,000?
1,000. Not $1 million.
That would go straight in my marketing budget for my books.
For your books.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they can live on.
Yes.
EJ, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. This has been a blast.
I am so glad to have you all here with another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. Allison out.
EJ Wenstrom believes in complicated heroes, horrifying monsters, and purple hair dye. She's an award-winning speculative fiction author of the Chronicles of the Third Realm War series, starting with FWA's 2016 Book of the Year, Mud. She is also a platforming expert with over 12 years experience at PR firms and has served as a regular contributor to leading blogs including The Right Life, DIY MFA, and Book Riot. She loves to address readers and authors alike. She has presented solo and on panels at everything from Writers Association chapters to Comic Cons to top-tier conferences. She has addressed audiences at Writers Digest Conference, RT Book Lovers Convention, Literary Hill Book Festival, Space Coast Comic Con, Florida Writers Conference as the 2017 Person of Renown, and many, many more. You can reach EJ at www.ejwenstrom.com. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at floridawriters.net.